Vedavyasaya Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shabham Shaninam Vishwarupam Padabhyam Brihaspatim Varenyam. Oh, see, until the last class, for the last 12 years, what was the next one? Next sloka that we did after these three. First one is Vedavyasa, the Paramaguru, Parama Parameshti Guru. Second was Ganesha for Nirvigna. Third was Brihaspati, okay, Guru, Devaguru. What was the fourth one? Narayanam Namaskritya Naram. So that is the Mangala Sloka of Mahabharata. It's the first sloka of Mahabharata. It's a Mangala Sloka. Gita is part of Mahabharata. We did the Mangala Sloka of Mahabharata. But today what are we doing? Katopanishad. So that mantra doesn't work. So we will do a special mantra, which is a mantra that is picked from Katopanishad. I'll explain to you why it is. And then this is what we'll continue for the next, say, 2.5 years until we complete Katopanishad. Then when we go to Taittiriya Upanishad, then there is a different mantra for Taittiriya Upanishad. So the mantra for the next 2.5 years, for 3 years, is this. Om Urdhvam Pranam Unnayati Apanam Pratyagasyati Madhye Vamanam Asinam Vishve Devaha Upasate Om. So it is the mantra from the Upanishad itself. So you can see it is prana and apana. There is a mention of that. So it says Urdhvam Pranam Unnayati. He who is taking prana up. Prana is, the yoga. So prana is what? When you are sleeping, you wake up and stand up because of prana shakti. When you are standing, you fall down and sleep with the apana shakti. So apana is kind of slowing down, right? What is parasympathetic kind of thing, right? Where it slows down and puts you on the floor. Apana shakti is pratyagasyati, means it's taking down. It's taking you down. Apana is taking you up, as in it makes you active. Urdhvam pranam unnayati apanam pratyagasyati madhye hridaya madhye vamana deva asinam is sitting vishve devaha, all the devata shaktis in this body, which is all the functionalities of all the indriyas. The brain is working, the organs are working. All of these are the functions of the devas. Vishve Devaha means all these devas are what? Their functionality, when the eye is working, the Surya Deva is Upasate. That Vamana who is sitting in the heart, the Paramatma, all this functionality they are offering to that Vamana. That is what? He is the Devata of the Upanishad. This is the only Upanishad in the Dashopanishad that actually mentions the name. Otherwise, usually, it's Brahman. It's kind of, it's a general term as the Supreme. It's kind of in English, you're saying, oh, I pray to the Supreme, without kind of naming the names. In this one, it says Vamana and it says Vishnu. So it's identifying who that Supreme is in the Upanishad. So welcome to Katopanishad. Like I said, it's a commitment for how many years? 2.5, 3 years. There is a...
We're taking the full Upanishad, 15 years.
That's 15 years. That is Dashopanishad. So, there's a saying in Sanskrit. It's this one. It's like courageous in the beginning, right? Aramba Shurapva. Have you heard of Aramba Shura? Yes. What is Aramba Shura? They have identified that. Right? Aramba Shura Nyaya means what? Aramba, in the beginning, we are all Shura. That means high in the beginning. The January 1st, you're going 15 miles, walking around, everything. Why? Because your dopamine in the brain is hitting you, everything is new. I'm going to do it for the next 10 years. What happened the next day? Hormones come down, and then it's a little boring. And then after the first week, you're back to square one. We always revert to the mean, is as they say, right? When things are novel, you're kind of, oh, I'm going to make the change. And then we always go back to what we have always been, right? So but that's the most important thing about Aramba Shuratva is consistency. It's not important of the quality and how well you do it. It is how consistent you do it. Whether you are high, whether you are bored, whether you are sad, it doesn't matter. You keep doing it. When that is the thing, then the goal is accomplished. That's why they have a special term, Aramba Shuratva. That means everybody is a hero in the beginning, but what it depends in, you should be hero until the end. That's the consistency. So that's why I'm mentioning this. Consistency, it trumps everything. Consistency is the most important thing. Okay, so Katopanishad. So this is the Dashopanishad series. The 10 Upanishads. That there are 10 main Upanishads, in our Vedanta, and there are many other sub Upanishads are there, but 10 main that all the commentators, Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, even before them. So because even they mentioned that before them, these scholars have commented on that. So if somebody has to systematize a school of thought within Indian traditions, they have to write commentaries on the 10 Upanishads, on the Brahma Sutras, and then on the Gita. If you have not shown all of those things, you don't have a system. And that's the reason why there are only 3 main systems today: Advaita, Visishtadvaita, Dvaita, because they are the ones that have done and shown that thought is there across the board in the 3 forms of literature, right? Many of them have just done commentaries on just the sutras, or they've only done commentaries on some of the Upanishads and all of that. But only some schools of thought with a great tradition of scholarships have actually done across the board, which is what, to be a school of thought, to be recognized as a school of thought, you got to show that consistent thought is there in all forms of literature, whether it's in Vedas or the Smriti, which is Gita, and the Purana literature. So Katopanishad is one of the 10 Upanishads. And what are the Upanishads part of? See, the Upanishads are part of what we call the Vedic literature, right? And I'll explain to you what. We will go from basic 101. So Upanishads are 10. I said 10. And they are spread among the 4 Veda Shakhas, right? Rik Shaka, Yajur Shaka, Sama Shaka, Atharva Shaka. So from Rig Veda, there is one Upanishad. One, the principal Upanishad, which is what? Aitareya Upanishad. Aitareya Upanishad is the Upanishad from the Rig Veda. So from the Yajur Veda, there is 4 Upanishads. Yajur Veda is the only Veda which is 2 parts. It's divided into 2. And I'll tell you the story why, because it's relevant to what we are doing today. It is divided into 2. One is called Shukla Yajurveda, and the other one is called Krishna Yajurveda. Shukla is white, Krishna is black. Now, what is white and black, we'll see. And so within each of these Yajurveda parts, there are 2 Upanishads. Krishna Yajurveda is the older one. There are 2 Upanishads, Katopanishad, the one we are doing today, and then Taittiriya Upanishad, that we are going to do next after this. So Katopanishad and Taittiriya Upanishad. Shukla Yajurveda is new, as in newly mantra drishta. Nothing is new and old in Vedic literature because it is impersonal and authorless. But whenever it was got later in the Dwapara Yuga later on. So Shukla Yajurveda has 2 Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So if you go in the front there are boards, right? Ishavasyam idam sarvam. I think I saw one board there. That is Shukla Yajurveda. Aham Brahmasmi is on this side. That is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Also, Ishavasya Upanishad, Shukla Yajurveda, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the Shukla Yajurveda. So there are 4 in Yajurvedas, 4 principal Upanishads in the Yajurveda. And so in the Samaveda, there are 2. Right, which one is called as the Chandogya Upanishad, Chandogya, Tattvamasi, where the famous Tattvamasi is in Chandogya Upanishad, and then Kena Upanishad. And we have taught Kena Upanishad and Ishavasya Upanishad, in that, like before 2008. But those are the short Upanishads, they are very short Upanishads. So those are the 2. And then finally, Atharva Vedas, 3 Upanishads, right? Which is Mundaka Upanishad, also called as Atharvana Upanishad, then Mandukya Upanishad, and then Shat Prashna Upanishad or Prashna Upanishad. So basically it's 1 Upanishad, 2 Upanishad, 3 Upanishad, 4 Upanishad. So on Rik, Sama, Atharva and Yaju. Yaju has 4. So this one is 4 Upanishads in the Yajurveda. In the Krishna Yajurveda is 2, of which we are taking up Katopanishad. Okay.
What is there in
Aitareya Upanishad, Maha-Aitareya means it's many Upanishads combined into one, the whole Bhaga, that is Aitareya Upanishad. So among the Upanishads, the highly technical are Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So when we come to, if I take Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that is 10 years. Brihad Aranyaka means it's Brihat, it's very big. Chandogya is also big. So what we'll do when we come to that part, we're going to take sections of it, which we can understand, because otherwise there are many highly technical things that will not make sense. So we'll take like Shvetaketu and Uddalaka's story of Tattvamasi, how that came. That's one part of Chandogya Upanishad, so we'll take that. So we'll do that. But the other 7 Upanishads, it's manageable. So it is, we can discuss that. It is understandable. So now let's come to basics. What is Veda?
knowledge?
What kind of knowledge?
Knowledge of this thing. Or kind of knowledge, any knowledge.
No, any knowledge is not Veda. What kind of
Your
knowledge is
science,
Veda?
your science.
No, it's not science. There's no science. Like, there's no science in this is beyond science. It's not. See, there is 3 pramanas, right? There are 3 ways to acquire knowledge. Pratyaksha, that means physical experience. Anumana, reasoning and logic. And then Agama, right? Which is somebody has to tell you words. Is there a 4th way to acquire knowledge? There is no 4th way to acquire knowledge. Either you have to do and understand, either you will find out through logic what it is, or somebody has to tell you. There is no 4th way. That's what Pratyaksha. You can think if you come up with a 4th way, come up with a 4th way, then I'm open. That will be like a big discovery. We have to write a joint paper. There is no 4th way. There is only 3 ways. That we can fully experience is Pratyaksha. That which we partially experience, like for example, in reasoning is what? We know the effect, so we can deduce the cause, or we know the cause, that we can deduce the effect. That means partial experiences, Anumana. That means you know part of it. Like I see a smoke, oh, there should be a fire. So it means you see one part of it, then you deduce the other. That's Anumana. Agama means, then somebody has seen it, they'll tell you. Right? That means you have no experience of it, but you got it from somebody. Right? But even in that, Paurusheya Agama is where they have experienced. Somebody has to have seen or deduced, right? We are still. But then Shruti is what Veda is. Shruti. Shruti means it's always heard. Nobody has experienced. That is, so the very foundation of the whole of Sanatana Dharma system within our Indian traditions is Veda, Shruti. Why Shruti? There is something that, yesterday, I think most of you were there yesterday during Swamiji's speech. He mentioned whatever comes out spontaneously is the truth, right? But, when you're angry, we kind of say the truth, but it's the truth from us, within us. Why? Spontaneity is what? Filterless. That means if you don't have a filter, what comes out is truth. In this case, what I'm telling, when I'm angry, the filters are gone. What I tell you is what I always had in my mind. That comes out. It's my truth. The same way, any kind of falsity or all the things like that, they all come because there is a filter, there is a bias, there is a perspective. Right? So whenever we say Shruti, that means nobody has ever experienced it directly. Nobody has ever conceived. They always heard. And we have an example, the concept of God. Did you see God? Who told you about God? Your parents. That means that is our Shruti. Who told them? Did they experience? Probably not. They had Shruti. Who told their grandparents? So as you go back and back and back, nobody ever conceived of the idea of God. That's why they say the idea of God is inconceivable. It is beyond imagination. And it has to only come from Shruti. I know sociology textbook says, we saw the man when he was a hunter, saw the fire, and then he was so scared, and then suddenly they found the idea of God. How you cannot do that? You are scared, you run away. Right? Idea of God is so novel that you cannot see everything that we conceive in our mind is what? Based on what we already know. We are just permutation and combinations of what we have already known. That is, so if you in a novel way combine certain ideas, you get a new idea. That's it, that's new. But the parts of that new is already part of your experience. But when you did not know God and you conceive of God, that's a new thing. It was never there. Right? So that's where Shruti comes. Shruti comes where it says that the idea of God and all the things that they are something beyond anybody's experience and therefore inconceivable by humans. And therefore it's called, you might hear Vedas or Apaurushaya. Apaurushaya means there is no author. So without author, how did it come and fall? The books fell from the sky? No. It is not books. Writing came very recently, right? 2,500, 3,000 years. Indian writing is also much later than that. So nobody wrote anything in India, right? Until the Buddhist time, Brahmi script and all of that. That was the first putting everything in writing. Before that, there was no Veda. No, there was Veda. How was it transmitted? It's words transmitted. The words was transmitted. And if you look at what was for anything to happen a certain way, there should be a very huge motivation. The Vedas until today have been maintained without any defects. The swaras, right? The ups and downs, the swaras, like a tape recorder. And why I say without any defects means if you go the copies of say Rig Veda that you find in South India is going to be the exact copy that you will find in Maharashtra. It will be the exact one you'll find in Kashmir. Same thing in Bengal. No change, not a word of the Veda. If one says Agnini Ile Purohitam, the same thing you'll find in every part of India. There is no other version of Veda. There is only one version. And it has been transmitted intact with intonations. Intact. So then you'll begin to wonder what was the great motivation for them to keep it so intact? Because it was Apaurushaya. See, Mahabharata, you will find 100 copies. One in Maharashtra copy, one story will not be there. In another copy, the story is there. So you will not find, and that's why you have the critical edition, right? You have a critical edition. What is that called? Bhandarkar, the critical Bhandarkar edition. What is critical edition? They have taken 100 copies. They have seen which story is where, and then whatever common stories are there in the Mahabharata in different copies, they have made it into the critical edition. So Mahabharata is not one. Mahabharata, there's many versions of Mahabharata all across the country. Puranas is even worse. So many different Puranas. Something it says Shaiva Purana. In the South Indian or Tamil Nadu, so Shaiva Purana in Punjab, say not even the same. Completely different stories. Puranas, why they are not preserved intact? Puranas, why? Because it is Smriti. It is Smriti means it's a secondary knowledge. So you can find many different versions of secondary knowledge, variations. But when it comes to the Vedas, there is only one version across country. That is Shruti. That means there is no other way to do it. It is authorless. And so what then all the Vedic literature has a Rishi. Is that Rishi a composer? See, that's what a Rishi of a mantra, and also all the Veda, you don't say Vedic shloka. They are Vedic mantras. They are mantras. Bhagavad Gita shlokas, Veda mantras. All these are mantras. The Rishi of a certain Veda, like let's take the famous Gayatri mantra, is Vishwamitra Rishi. Did Vishwamitra compose it? No. He is the carrier, right? He is a mantra drashta. He received it. What does receive means? Go back to what Swamiji said yesterday. It is in a certain meditative state, it occurred to them. They had no agency. They didn't feel like, oh, this is me. Oh, let me change that word. It's not feeling, it's not looking good. Maybe I'll change Tat Sabitur. No, I'll change it. Not Tat Sasabitur. I'll say something like no. They just got it and they taught it to the students. That's it. So whenever we say, it's Vishwamitra Rishis, Gayatri, it just means they are mantra drashtas. That means they are the ones that got it without any agency. There was no composing. They were not trying to add anything. There was no filter. There was no agency. It just occurred. They were basically a media through which things got transmitted. That's it. And that's why you never say Rig Veda authored by XYZ. There's nothing like that. Yajurveda authored by XYZ. No. There's no author. Mahabharata, Veda Vyasa, and of course his Shishyas. Ramayana, Valmiki. It's one version. Ramayana, one version is Valmiki. Ramayana. So everything has an author. Veda doesn't have an author. And nobody claimed any in the whole of Indian tradition, whole of our past. Nobody said, I created the Veda. Nobody said that. And another thing is, the same mantras, there are different rishis for that. So, Tatsavitur Varenyam, that Gayatri mantra, you have Vishwamitra, there is another Gayatri, somebody has said. So, there are probably 10 rishis that are mantra drishtas of Gayatri. Only variation is when you say Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, that is Vishwamitra Gayatri. You replace it with different Vyakriti, that is a different Gayatri. Right? A different Rishi saw it in that combination. Right? So, like that. So, the Veda mantras are, even though some of the mantras are mantra drashta, are multiple Rishis of the same thing in different ages, at different times, all of these things. You'll see that across the whole Indian traditions. So, Veda is the foundation of Indian thought, is on an authorless corpus of knowledge called Veda, Shruti, that nobody has ever claimed they are authors of. Everybody in every generation has always said, it just occurred to me.
So you said Gayatri mantra, So is Gayatri the name of a meter, or is it only the Saraswati that is Gayatri mantra, or is it the name of?
No. All of in Rigveda, majority is Gayatri meter,
So
which is
that-
8 times 3, which is 8 aksharas, 3 paramas.
So this Saraswati is the Gayatri for Surya Bhagavan, correct? So that is given to Vishwamitra. If you're seen it for some other god, then that is for that.
Yeah.
Correct.
But that the other Gayatris that we see, that is not in the Vedic linkage. That is a Gayatri that is borrowing the structure from the Gayatri mantra. There are so many Gayatri, like Ganesha Gayatri, Shiva Gayatri, that is not anywhere. So that is something that they have borrowed from, these, the ideal thing, standard is Vishwamitra Gayatri. Everything else is a copy of the copy. Because there's a way, maybe I'll teach Gayatri in somewhere. There's a way what each pada should be. That is Varenyam or Dhimahi, Varenyam, and all of those things should come. So that structure they have copied into all of the Devata Gayatris. But that's not Veda mantras. So that is how it is. So any question so far?
Abhuti or Abhasna, can it be a way to get the Vedas, when the Rishi wrote the Vedas, they felt it. It came to me, would it be Abhasna or Abhuti in Sanskrit?
No. So it is it's in the meditative mantra drashta. So mantra drashta. Now the thing is, today we have so many gurus, right? They have their own countries and all that. Now tomorrow somebody claims, oh, I saw this mantra. You can go to ChatGPT and say, right, a mantra, I can give you a mantra. It's mantra drashta. With no agency, it has generated on its own. That's I saw. Will that become part of Rigveda? Why?
Because you're not in that sattvic state, right? You're not that Rishi.
So to be a Rishi, drashta of a mantra, you need to have certain gunas. Kali Yuga, nobody has that gunas, right? And then how do you know you have a guna? There's something called as a Lakshana Shastra. That means your forehead will be 5 fingers, your hand will be this length, your fingers will be that long. Then you cannot say, oh, I got it, means they'll see, oh, you don't have the Lakshana for that. No, this is it. You are a crook. So, yeah, nobody, yes, you can have the mantra drishti in any age, but you need to have the guna, you need to be the vessel.
To receive.
You need to have the proper fit to receive it. Mostly in Kali Yuga, that is not there. So if somebody said, I did the Veda Avishkara at this age, basically, they'll probably have 3-finger forehead, which means don't do it. So like that. So they have all of this Lakshana Shastra. 32 Lakshana should be there. This is how they should have. The legs should be this length. The legs and the body, the proportion, there is a proportion for that. If you are Sattvic Guna, there is a proportion for that. So there's all those things, right? So, then only if you have that, I don't think plastic surgery has come to that point yet. But only if you have that, then it shows that you have that gunas to be the receiver of these mantras. Okay. So the basic thing is what? Anything that is conceived comes with a filter. Even God did not write the Vedas. It is apaurusheya, even without composing it. He gave it, but he did not compose it. Right? Because even in the Veda mantra, no, this is I forgot the name of the person who said this. This was pre-Shankara. One of the things he said is if Paramatma, if God composes Vedas, he might have put his own version. How do we know it's the truth? Is what, one of the questions he asks. So always when somebody composes it, there's always a question mark. What filter, what bias did he have? Did he really want to show us the truth? All of those things comes. But if it is apaurusheya, no filter, therefore it's always true. It's a different matter. Can a literature with authorless, can it exist? So we'll come to that later on because Katopanishad itself, it will go to a point where we'll discuss about that. But for now, take it on faith that the tradition, where we call it is Shruti, is unauthored body of knowledge, basically, which means there's no filter. When there is no filter, it's always the truth. Therefore, it is the truth. The scale, our standard is Shruti. Everything else in the literature is measured comparing to Shruti. Whatever Puranas are there, if it goes against, like if you go to Brahma Sutras, it says, oh, this Purana says this thing, that Purana says that thing. Which one do I, which one do I take? Because these are two opposite views. Right? And then it says, oh, the easy way to do that is what? Compare it to what the Shruti said. If that goes against the Shruti, you will have to reinterpret this or reject it. Right? So your standard against which you are measuring all the knowledge in all the other literature in the Vedanta literature is always Shruti. Shruti is our standard scale, measuring scale. Everything is measured to Shruti. If it's goes against the Shruti, it's wrong. Or you have to reinterpret it. Or there is some way to, whatever it says on a superficial level is not really what it means. So they go and reinterpret. So that's how all the interpretation mechanisms are there in our Vedanta. Okay. So that is, I said Shruti is authorless body of knowledge. That's the foundation. And what are all the Shrutis? The Vedas. The Chatur Shakas of the Vedas. Rig, Yajus, Sama, Atharva. All of these are Shrutis, authorless. Then on top of that, when I say on top, and the next to that is Smriti literature. What is Smriti means? Remember, right? What do you remember? You remember your experience. That means it's an experienced one. It's not a heard one. It's an experienced one. That means what are Smritis? Itihasa, Purana, those are Smritis. History, in a very loose sense, is Itihasa is history. We only have two Itihasas. What are that? Ramayana and Mahabharata are the only two histories that we have. Puranas are not really histories. Histories are mixed with it. Puranas are another kind of Smritis. So Puranas, see, the tool in our tradition to transmit knowledge is what? Stories. So there are so many stories that are just made up stories. I want to teach you something. They'll say, oh, long ago there was a king called Shrutaketu, and he had two sons, and they did this. If you go back in history and try to see who the Shrutaketu was, there's no Shrutaketu. Why? Because it's made up. So there are stories like that. In Mahabharata, it's also there's stories like that. There's stories that are history, like loosely history, like the king list. There's in all the Puranas, there's a king list of kings. That is historical in nature. And there are other which is beyond history. That's beyond. So it is stories of a certain kind, which I've taught in the Jyotisha class and all of that, but we'll come to that. But basically all the Puranas and Itihasas are basically stories. Because the media or the medium of knowledge transmission in Indian traditions is stories. There's a story for everything. Like they say, like there's an app for everything. There is a story for it. So it's all stories in the Puranas. But then if that story says something, teaches something that goes against what the Shruti is teaching, that story is either need to be reinterpreted or rejected. Okay? So that is how you arrive at truth. Because there's that standard. Everything that goes against the standard either need to be reinterpreted or rejected. And that's how we maintain integrity of the whole. See, we are what? We are a distributed system. Some Rishi in some age got something. Another Rishi in another age in another part of India got some knowledge. All of these are body of knowledge, right? It's all independent. It is all distributed. We don't have one center. There's no central knowledge. There's all distributed, right? And which is what we are doing now in networks and blockchain and all of those things. Basically, that's what it is. Because you always maintain the authenticity and it's kind of the truth when things are distributed. Because you can corrupt one copy here, and that's what happened to Puranas. One copy got corrupted. Why did it get corrupted? Why Puranas? Why all this other literature got corrupted? Remember, when was printing press invented? Printing. Right? So before that, how were you going to print? Scribes. Right? So one Purana, one scribe was doing, I don't like this one. Let me change the shloka. So it's like, I tell you something, you tell somebody something. At the end, whatever I told and what he has written is two different copies. Right? That is happened to Puranas. But for Shruti, there is a check mechanism. Right? There's a Dhanapata, Padapata, and all those. So that is the discipline that there is to maintain the authenticity of the transmission of the Vedas. They have made that, that you remember the Padapata, Agnim, Ile, Purohitam, Evasya, Ratvijam, like that. Hotaram, Ratnadadamam. So you have, you do Padapata, Ghanapata. All of these different patas are what? These are in computers, what we call in transmission. It's a checks, right? You transmit and then again you check. And if the check is not correct, then the transmission is defective. So they have made that for Shrutis. Exactly like network transmissions, they made the checks, all these different patas. But it is not there for Puranas and even Mahabharata and all of those things. And therefore the corruption has happened.
And also, because of the Kaladesh also, right? Based on the situation, the teacher must have changed it to suit the situations at that time, like how Buddha did it or how the Chikratari did it. That is why also.
No, Chitra and all, they didn't touch.
Like the
primary. Yeah.
Smritis. I'm talking about Smritis. Smritis could have been changed because of the Kala and the Desha, because of the time in which it was there. So.
No, it's like, this is my guidebook and let me go change it. It's a guide. That means you don't change it, it changes you. Right? But the corruption happened what? When you have to copy that, what happens?
So it means you're saying the corruption was not intentional, it was unintentional.
It might be, there's intention also. Like if you go to some Purana, it starts with the story of that place. How great that place, Sthala Purana, right? It's there in the Purana. Why would that come there? There's no, suddenly one whole chapter is full of that place. So that means people wanted to add, let me add my own stuff. So corruption happened like that. When they started adding their own stuff, they started corrupting the words, the copy was not right. So all of these things happen. And therefore, but then over thousands of years, what happens? The error becomes unmanageable, right? And therefore you see, some errors transmitted to some place, and there's a different kind of error in different place. Different Puranas with the same name have different stories. All of these things have happened. Right?
Because they are very rich in concept.
Yes.
How back should we go in order to?
There is no pure Purana. It's all
What
gone.
you see is intentional variations.
Intentional, unintentional, both. Right? So the scribes' errors. Right? They might have, instead of copying some word, they copied differently. Right? And so, kind of multiply that across time, across the locations. What happens? It's too many different errors. So that has creeped into the Puranic and the Smriti literature. And therefore, the only way to gauge that is compare what it is saying to the Shruti literature. Because Shruti is intact. Why we know it is intact? Because every copy in every part of the country is the same.
But then what do a person like me who not have access to Shruti, how will I be able to understand?
No problem. No, Shruti, you don't have to worry about it.
See, I'm by default not allowed to go, even if I want to go.
No, nothing like that. Katopanishad, you'll know why. I'll tell you why. That's not, what you said is not right. Right? When you say you're not allowed, I'll tell you, the Katopanishad itself will answer that in the very beginning. Okay. So, but again, it's Shruti, you can rest assured there is no defects in the Shruti. Samhitas, all of these parts, there is no defects. So that is what we have to measure every story in everything that we have that's come down to us. Is it saying something that's completely against what the Shruti is saying? To such an extent that if you look at Shankara's commentary, there is no quotation from Puranas. He's only used Upanishad and related one. There's no Purana quotation. If you go to Ramanuja and Madhva, you see Puranic quotations and all of that stuff. But when you go to Shankara, he's like, no, it's only Upanishad quotations, no Puranic quotations. So that is the extent to which it is. The Puranas were really not. Puranas are respected, but we don't know which is the correct versions now. So they have critical editions, like, common stories across all of these copies across the country. The majority, or maybe this was in the original Purana. So they've kind of done all of that stuff. So, but research has been done, but then we don't really know, right? So that is the second kind of literature called Smriti. That means it's conceived.
Yes, saying that, thinking that the Puranas have had the largest influence on us as because that stories have come to us from our grandparents.
Yes.
I wonder whether we should be taught the Shruti correctly.
No. It's like whether I want to be first PhD before I go to kindergarten.
No, the principles, the core principles filtered out. But what happens is
No,
now
principle.
we're all colored, so colored, it's tough to see through the mess. To see the
That's this class. That's
yeah. No, I'm
unfiltered. I should publish this class is unfiltered. But yeah. But it's the right way. You have to learn through stories, right? Whatever, my grandmother or whoever was that, I still remember those stories, right?
Right.
Whoever you ask, I remember my grandmother, like my wife keeps saying, my grandmother used to say this story, right? So those stories are very powerful because they have imprinted for life, right? And stories, even what is that guy's name? Raja Modi, the director. So my grandmother used to tell the stories, and that's the inspiration for Bahubali. So stories have very, very powerful impact. Very powerful impact.
So message is the same, the depiction is different.
Depiction are different. And so you need to understand what are the tools that you need to know to understand these stories in the correct way. Right? So that those tools exist. And that's the reason why the Purana quotes are there in some of the other commentaries, because those tools exist. Right? So we need to know those tools. But that's some other time. Yeah.
But so is Purana fiction?
No, it's not fiction.
Because there is no verified, and the only logical explanation I know so far is that it basically has all happened in the same thing.
That is correct. Since you know Jyotisha, the stories of the Puranas are the stories of Jyotisha. So it's kind of like the templates. Like, and I give this example a lot of times. It is like there's a story of Surya and Shani. Most of you probably know or heard it in my class before. Surya is Shani is whose son? Chaya's son, right? So who's the other wife, the clone, Sanya. So Yama is Sanya's son. So Yama is actually Vaivasvata, right? It's Vivaswan is Surya, Yama Vaivasvata. So his last name, Yama's last name is Vaivasvata, which is Surya's son, S-O-N. So, but then the story says that then Sanya could not bear the radiance of Surya Deva. So she put a clone called Chaya, basically shadow, clone. And then she went away. And then Surya thought that was his wife. And then he had 3 more kids with Chaya. Shani was one of them. Shani, Tapati and all. And Savarni one. Shani was the son. But then what happened? Chaya was ill-treating Yama, Yamuna and all of them. Because they were stepsons. So, and then one day Yama got very, very angry and he kicked his mom. And so she cursed him, let the worms eat your leg. Even in like the older generation, Kide Pade, right? That is the Kide Pade comes from that story. Right? Chaya said, for you, on your leg, Kide Pade. Right? And so he lost one of his legs. Basically, it is a rot. One leg of Yama is a rot. So he runs to Surya, says, that's not my mom. Because no mom is going to curse her own son like this. And then Surya goes and confronts her, and then she tells the truth that no, Sanya is gone. I am Chaya and all of these things. So then he goes in search of her, and then she is in the form of a mare, and all of that. And then through her, Surya Deva also takes the form of a horse. And who are the kids? The twins, Ashwini Kumars, right? Horse, Ashwini Kumar. They are also Surya's sons, also through Sanya, but in a different form. So Shani is, it's like, oh, that's not my mom and all of that. And then he has a fight with his father and goes, I'm going to go far away from you. That's the story. It's historical story. It's not historical story. What kind of story is it? An fiction? It's not a fiction. It's a different kind of story. What is different kind of story? When you go back to your birth chart, and let's say your son, S-O-N, is born with Sun, S-U-N, and Saturn, Shani together. You take it to a Pandit. He says, there will be a problem between father and son. Yeah, they'll be fighting throughout the life. Why did he say that? Because Sun and Saturn are together. Hey, don't go and check your, there's so many. I'm simplifying it to a large extent just to explain. So, there's a Shani Surya Yuti. Therefore, you had a problem with your dad, or you're going to have a lot of problems with your son or your kids. How did he say that? How did he get that knowledge? Because that story, that means because Sun and Saturn are together in your horoscope, the story of that Purana becomes your story.
Check whether it's the astrological principle which has been substantiated by a story.
No, it's a story which is astrological principle. Yeah, the primary is the stories. Stories are, because that's why stories are called Daiva. They are the stories that are templates for the principles of astrology.
Means that really plays out.
It plays
So
out.
we can say and validate that the story.
Yes. No, they're not fictions, they are a different kind of stories because they are template stories that are not historically real, but they're real in a certain way because they will become our story when that combination is within us.
There are mnemonics to remember what is happening there, so that this is what will happen. So they made up a story.
No, it's not a made-up story. It's not a made-up story. It's not historical. It's not made up. It's neither a fiction or a myth. So it's a different kind of story.
No, I'm saying made up in the sense that this is happening, like Saturn is slow moving. So they made up a story around like why Saturn is slow moving, and then we will be able to remember, like whenever we
No, it's not like that. See, that is our theory. It's a hypothesis, right? A hypothesis, what is the, how do you prove or disprove it? A hypothesis that can neither be proved or disproved. That is our Indian hypothesis, because every one of us will have a story. Oh, I think it happened. Right? So that's not true. But there are made up stories. Like I said, right? Shrutaketu, king was there. They are made up like Panchatantra stories. That's a different template. Or moon always loved Rohini. So that means moon is the most powerful in Rohini nakshatra. Right? So those are all the stories that are a different kind of stories that are neither fiction nor myth nor historical. So it's a different kind of story.
So when you say story, I mean, is that the right word? Because, so you're saying it's neither has it happened. So
it's not historically happened.
So is it logic based on observance or
no? So it's a given. It's come down to us. Those stories have come down to us. I think you.
Nobody did.
No, it's not. See, whenever we say return, it is 2000 years. Basically, nothing is written, right? In all of Hindu traditions, writing came very recently, 2500 years ago. They were all, memorized and transmitted words, not written. So even when Mahabharata of Vyasa was describing in Ganesha, that means the Mahabharata is 2500 years old. That Mahabharata was already there. Writing was recent. Right? So when I say recent, is 2500 years, so 30,000 years. So that's how it is, right? So for now, take it that Purana stories are not fictions, they are not myths, And so to some extent, there are histories, but they are ahistorical template stories. They're ahistorical stories. Is Indra not there? Indra is there. The story of Indra, Indra is what Abhimani for what? Karma, right? Karma Devata. Where does Karma Devata sit? Kartik. 10th house. The throne of the heaven is where? 12 o'clock. When the sun is 10th, right? Like that, right? Leo and the 10th. So like that. So that's how these stories are. These stories are describing all of these, all of the things that we know as different principles that these stories are describing. Okay. So now, no, I digress so much. What was I saying?
You were starting off with what is it?
We did all of that, right? Vedas and Smritis and all of that stuff. And then there's a Sutra literature that came later on. Again, Sutra literature is also recent. And the Brahma Sutras are the sutras where it is systematization of a body of knowledge. It's just a body of knowledge, right? Like what do I do with it? So they systematized it with Brahma Sutras. That means it's like aphorisms where a small one, like Om Athato Brahma Jignasa Om, right? Janmadhyasya Yatah Om. Just there's a sutras. So it is telling that it is easy to memorize. So why sutra came? Because it's so easy to memorize. And then Panini sutras are there, but Brahma Sutras are very old. Badarayana, that means Veda Vyasa created that. So basically he gave the whole package with the cover and has handed down to posterity. We should be so thankful of Veda Vyasa and his students because he systematized, gave us all the sutras and all packaged it and gave it to humanity after that. That's what we see today is a small fraction of what was there before and what was available. What did Veda Vyasa do? He and his Shishyas, what did I say in the last class about the previous Dwapara Yuga? What happened at the beginning?
Before Veda Vyasa started, there was no Veda.
Right? Because it was worse than Kali Yuga. There was nothing available. No Rigveda, nothing was available. Why? Because of the Gautama Shapa, right? At the very beginning of the Dwapara Yuga, I said there was a big drought for many, many years. And then people went to Gautama Ashrama and, seeking refuge. And then, he had everything Haryali, right? Everything was green, food was available, everything was available. So he kept those people. Not only did he give food for stomach, he gave food for the mind. He taught them so many things and everything, prosperity. Then the drought went away. Now people were like homesick. Oh, we want to go back. We want to go back. And then, but how will they say, Gautama, we want to go back? Because every time they told Gautama, I want to go back, he said, no, wait, hold on. I'll teach you more. And then it's like, after 12 o'clock, I'll keep you here, right? I'll tell you more, be here. So, and then, but they were like homesick. And then what happened? Ganesha came. Ganesha said, you know what? Let's create a fictional cow, like a clone. It's a lifeless cow. And then it will be grazing in the fields. And then Gautama will tell Gautama that this cow is eating all the grains in the fields, the crops, and then he is going to shoo it away, and then the cow will die, and then you accuse him of Gohatya and say we are going away. So it's a great excuse. They'll do that. Oh yeah, it's a good idea, and then they'll do that, and they'll say, oh, you did Gohatya, Gautama. We are going. They all go. Gautama is like, how did this happen? It shouldn't happen. It's not. I just shooed it away and the cow died. It never happens like that. So then he, in the meditative state, he found out what happened. And then he cursed. You came here. I gave you the food for the stomach and the mind. You had all great knowledge. But then you did this. You betrayed the guru. And then he cursed Gautama Shapa. And then after that, Sarvanasha in Dwapara Yuga. Worse than Kali Yuga. At least we have some books now. We have, at least this class is there, or there's classes across the world. Nothing was there in Dwapara Yuga. Worse than Kali Yuga. Then Veda Vyasa was born. And then what happens? It's like, in today's world, let's say there is no Veda, no Purana, no Gita anywhere. Somebody in some remote village in Himachal Pradesh has a book. Somebody in Tamil Nadu has a book. Somebody in Bengal has a book. That's it. So what is your job? Go there, collect those books, compile it, transmit it. That's what Vedavyasa did. They went across the country. And of course, he also avishkar, whatever was lost. But whatever was packed together and given to the world is a fraction of what is called Vedic corpus. Just a fraction of what it. And what Vedavyasa gave, a fraction remains. So many shakas are gone. Right? So in Shukla Yajurveda, there are supposed to be 15 shakas. There's only 2 shakas. Kanva Shaka, Madhyamina Shaka. That's it. So even what has been transmitted is also lost. There's only 1 or 2 remaining. Sama Shakas are 1,000. Very, very few remaining. So like that, over time, things have just disappeared. And then at that time, what happened is whatever was there and whatever Vedavyasa could do an avishkara, he put everything together. Veda is one. How many Vedas are there? No, there's only one Veda. Okay? But within the Veda, there is a poetical way, there is a prose, there is a music. So then we said, oh, Veda is one, but it is 4 shakas. Rik shaka, poetry. Right? Agnimi Elas, that will be poetry. Rik, Archanath, right? Rik means it is for worship. It's a poetry way. Rik shaka. Yajush shaka for yajana, prose, mostly prose. Yajurveda is mostly prose. Sama shaka, all of the same. Nothing new there. All the same Rigveda and Yajurveda only. Now putting it to music. So what is the source of Indian music? Samaveda. Samavedas. Atharva Veda is Atharva Avishkruta, the Shruti that Atharva Rishi has edited. So these are 4. Veda is one. What Veda Vyasa has done, Vyasa means what? See, in Sanskrita, Samasa means to bring together. Vyasa means to distribute, to cut. So what Veda Vyasa did is a divider. So he said, you know what, if you give one thing to people, they don't have the mental capacity to digest it. So let me make pieces. How do you eat an elephant? 1 piece at a time. So that's what he said. Okay, let me make this small parts. So like big parts, within that parts and parts and parts and parts. And so he said, no, it's a Rik Shaka is there, Yajush Shaka is there, Sama Shaka is there, Atharva Shaka. So if you look at the last names, Dvivedi, experts in 2 Vedas, right? So these are traditions. Chaturvedi, Trivedi, and there are of course corruption, right? So like Dvivedi, I think becomes Dube. Dubedi, Dube. Dube is a short of Dvivedi. So in their Vamsha, they were keepers of two Vedas, 2 Veda Shakas. So if you look at last names, there's a lot of like for a Vajpaya. So Vajpayee, somewhere up in his lineage, somebody did Vajpaya Yajna. So that last name came, right? So all of those things are quoted in our names and in our family names and all those things, right? So those Vedas. So Veda is just one, but there are 4 shakas. And within those 4 shakas, there are many upashakas. Right? Now let's come to, I said Yajurveda became divided into 1 Yajurveda, got divided into 2 versions, 2 branches. I said Shukla, Krishna. The original is Krishna Yajurveda. Or Yajurveda original was 1. Now I have to come to the story, and when after the story, then we'll go back to Katopanishad, right? Because Katashaka is actually within the Krishna Yajurveda. So the original rishis of Yajurveda, there are various rishis, right? Then what happens is, in the Veda Vyasas, when they got the Yajurveda, all the Vedic literature, and branched it into 4 branches, what did he say? Hey, student, Paila, you and your students are going to be transmitters of Rig Veda for posterity. So their only job is to be the keepers of Rig Veda. So when you have a thread ceremony, we are Rigvedis. That means somewhere at some point we were assigned a certain Shaka Adhyayi of the Rig Veda. I don't know. Nobody knows. Even my grandfather, who's a Pandit, they don't know. It's not been transmitted. Which Rig Shaka? I want to find out, but there is no information. I know there's some Rig Shaka that we are the keepers of the family. So various different families were the keepers of these things. Within, started by Paila. Paila was one of the Shishyas of Vedavyasa. Then he said, Vaishampayana, you take Yajur Veda, you and your Shishyas, you are going to be the transmitters of Yajur Veda, and all these Shishyas and their Upashishyas and all of them, they will be keepers of various Shakas, Upashakas of Yajur Veda. You transmit this to the world. Right? Sumanto, you do this, right? To Atharva Veda. And all he did all of this. Paila, Vaishampayana, Sumanto, and there's one more. I forgot what the other one is. So 4 different Shishyas, he gave those.
Is it Gemini?
Jaimini. Jaimini was Samaveda. Yeah, Jaimini was Samaveda. And so then Atharva Veda, Sumanto. So you go and transmit this. And then of course he had Shishyas for transmission of Mahabharatas. Suta Puranika, right? Sutas. So they were Roma Harshana. He was the one who was in charge of transmitting Puranas. Suta Puranik. There's a Suta. He was a Suta. That means he'll go to village, his Shishyas, they'll go and sing Puranas. That's how the stories have come to us. They were going to village to village. Their job is to just go to different villages and sing this and teach this. These stories of the different Puranas. So Roma Harsha means what? Hair raising, right? His name was like that. Hair raising, because he was a keeper of stories. So all his Shishyas were keeper of stories, and then that's how those stories have come down to us.
So in Vishnu says now we have this Vaishampayana Vaja. Is it the same Vaishampayana who is there for this Yajurveda?
Yeah, same. Vyasa Shishya. But these are everywhere in Mahabharata, everywhere in Puranas, you'll always see these names. Because these were, so for us, they are the gurus. Because they are the ones that brought everything together and they transmitted. Because before them, everything is lost. Right? They are the ones who got, traced different families that was not there anywhere, brought everything together, structured it, systematized it, and gave us a gift, which we are destroying. Right? So that's why it's very important to learn to chant these things, because when calculators come, our ability to calculate in the mind is gone. When iPhone came, I don't remember any phone number. Now AI is coming, thinking is outsourced. Right? Simply we'll be standing like this. Why AI will do all the thinking for us? Right? So basically, when you are dependent on something, you lose the power with it. So always, Vedas will be in the books, but take some part of the Vedas, especially if you know which Shakha you are, Adhyayi of, take that and then just try to memorize that. That is a great thing. So that's how it's come down to us. So Vaishampayana, there's a story of how Yajurveda, which was 1, became 2. Vaishampayana, and again, this was for new Avishkara, right? It's a story, but everything bad that happens is for a good that needs to come. You need a situation. Right? So Vaishampayana was the keeper of Yajurveda. And so the Bhagavata says that one day he was invited to some place, and then he was going in the Himalayas. In Himalayas, it's all short things, right? Ways, right? If you look at this side, it's a huge mountain. You look at this side, you only see it's a valley, Death Valley. So he was actually passing that through that way, and it so happened there was another Brahmana coming from the other side. So they were kind of crossing each other. So that Brahmana accidentally hit Vaishampayana's feet, one foot, and then slipped and fell down, died. So now Brahmahatya dosha came to Vaishampayana. So basically, it's to create a situation. Vaishampayana is not Brahmahatya. So he said, And it's another funny thing is, if it's a dosha, prashchita you do. He came back and told his students, this happened, I have to do prashchita for this Brahmatya, but I want to distribute this prashchita to you. All the students, you do prashchita in my name. So one of the star students of Vaishampayana was, what's his name? Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya was his star student. So Yajnavalkya said, why you want to trouble all the students? Me alone, I will do it. Don't worry, I'll do it. So you have so much ego that you think that you can do the prayaschitta and don't want other students to share it. You are no longer my student. Get out. And then before going, give everything up. And actual thing Bhagavata uses vamana, that means vomit whatever I have taught you and get out. Which is a figurative way of saying that, because even in regional languages, vomit everything and then get away means give everything, teach everything to the other students, and you should never ever utter those mantras again in life. You cannot teach anybody, you cannot repeat anybody. That's it, you have to go away. So then it says, when he did that, one of the mantras was taken by Tittiris, which is actually, it's a small birds. Taittiriya Upanishad, small birds, but it's birds is also a figurative way of saying rishis. Right? There's a lot of figurative things in the Puranic language. Vayasa means crow, but whenever crow is mentioned, it's asuras. It's asura. Hamsa, purity. Whenever Hamsa is mentioned, it's Brahmadeva. Paramahamsa, Vishnu. Right? Paravatas, that means Devatas that are always looking up. That means divine beings. Whenever Shuka is mentioned in a particular hymn, Shuka means parrot, but it's also human. Why? It's both Sukha and Dukkha. It's a mishra. To be human is what? To have both happiness and suffering. That is. So the Shuka, it means parrot, but etymology can also be a mixture of Sukha and Dukkha. So whenever they want to indicate humans, they say parrot. And so it's a very figurative sense of doing all of these things. So these are all the secret codings, they are there, right? To understand, it's difficult. Otherwise, if you only have dictionary and look at this, what is this saying? A parrot then went, did and this, and a crow came. What is all this? Ancient hunter-gatherers telling all that. But when you know what each of them mean, you get it. Right? So that's how. And then, Yajnavalkya, he went away. And then, but he wanted to get the Yajurveda. So he did the deep meditation of Suryadeva, Suryanarayana. So Surya, in the form of a horse, came and gave Yajurveda Bhaga to him. It's Vaji, they say Vaji. Vaji means horse. So as Suryadeva in the form of the horse gave him Shukla Yajurveda. Shukla because it is bright, it came from the sun. So whatever was previous is Krishna compared to Shukla, whatever the sun gave. So sun in the Dwapara Yuga gave Shukla Yajurveda, the new Yajurveda, which is Ishavasya Upanishad, all of these Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, all of these are part of the newer Yajurveda that Yajnavalkya got from Surya, and then he and his students transmitted it. So one became two. So now going back to Katopanishad. So Katopanishad comes from the older one. That's Vaishampayana is the Rishi of Katopanishad, or all the Yajurveda. So of that, there are 86 branches. The Krishna Yajurveda has 86 branches. Shukla Yajurveda has 15 branches. There are 101 branches of Yajurveda. Total. Upashaka. What is a branch? So if Vaishampayana teaches Katha Rishi, that is one branch. If Vaishampayana teaches another Rishi, that becomes another. So he taught 86 different students. And so there is 86 different Upashakas of Yajurveda. Upashakas. Like Krishna Yajurveda. So the one that Vaishampayana, so he did not teach everything to everybody. Whatever Yajurveda is there, as part of it, Katha Rishi, he taught him, you and your students and their families will be the keepers of that part, Kata Shaka. Oh, you take this one. You are the keepers of this. So that's how the transmission is. That's how it has come down. So the part of the Yajurveda, that Krishna Yajurveda, that he gave to Katha Rishi, that has come down to us. That is Kata Shaka. Now in the Kata Shaka, there are 4. So every Shaka or Upashaka has 4 parts to it. What are those 4 parts? Let's see. It is based on functionality and purpose. You are right, partially right.
This 4 shakhas are only for Katopanishads?
No.
Everything?
Upashakas. But these Upashakas have 4 parts. What are those parts? Samhita Bhaga, Brahmana Bhaga, Aranyaka Bhaga, Upanishad Bhaga. Basically, Samhita Bhaga is the mantras. That part is preserved as the Samhitas. Brahmana Bhaga is what? No. Brahmana means Brahmana Anatim. That means explanatory part. That means Agnimi, Ile, Prohitam. It's okay. I have the mantra. Where do I use it? For what purpose? Samhita doesn't say that. Brahmana says no. When you are cutting this thing, that mantra should be used to cut this grass. And then when you are putting that in the Agni, this mantra needs to be. Where does that come? That comes in the Brahmana part. That means Brahmana is the explanation part of where the Samhita mantras need to be used. Usage is Brahmana portion. That is the same shakas. Every shaka, Upashaka is like that. Then Aranyaka is a specialized one. At that time, what happened at retirement? They were giving everything away and then going to the forest. So when they go to the forest, after you hit 65, I don't know, at that time, I don't know what retirement age was. Whenever they felt that their job is done, they went to the forest, and that forest part, there was a certain part of that you can do in forest. Okay? That's an Aranyaka part. Aranya. That's a part of the mantras of every shaka that is useful in a forest as a retired person. So that you do every day what needs to be done and all those things. No, not but like what rituals.
So was this Aranyaka part also taught in the beginning only in the what do you call it? Brahmacharya Ashram, when the boy was 15 or 16, 12 years old, what he should be doing?
Yeah, taught, but not used.
He
Aranyaka,
was expected to remember that.
yeah, but he is not doing the ritual to use. Knowing is different from doing.
You were taught that.
Right. Kata Rishi and his students all knew all the parts. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and all of that stuff. That doesn't mean they were going to the forest. I mean, of course, they were in the ashrams and traveling across. But that's the forest part. Upanishad is what the most important philosophical part was the Upanishad. Philosophical portions was put in the Upanishads. So every Shaka Bhaga had this Upanishad which contained the very pure essence of the philosophical portion of everything. So that was Upanishad. So every Shaka has some part of the Upanishad. Right? So Upashaka, Kata Upashaka, there's Kata Samhita, the Samhita Bhaga, Brahmana Bhaga, Aranyaka Bhaga, Kata Upanishad Bhaga that was given to Kata is Katopanishad.
So this Upashakas also are a part of Vidyasthana. Vidyasthana, we have this Vidya, from where this knowledge is coming, the place of Vidya knowledge. So there are 14 Vidyasthanas, I heard it is there. So is this also a part of that?
I don't know what are Vidyasthanas. Yeah. So, but these are like each Rishi, whatever knowledge was given to a certain Rishi, that becomes that Shaki, Upashaka. Okay? So then his students will transmit that to the world. They have transmitted. But again, what we have written is, right? So it's a very small number of shakas have come down. So Kata Shaka, in that Upanishad Bhaga, that is Katopanishad. So Krishna Yajurveda, Kata Shaka, Upanishad Bhaga, Katopanishad. So now we came to Katopanishad. So because why we are doing all of this? To put you to sleep? Hopefully you're not. Because there's a lot of things that we need to understand here. This is because every Veda mantra, when you are chanting, you need to know three things. Remember three things, which is what? Rishi, chhandas, and Devata. You need to know the context. There is nothing without context. Who is the Rishi to which it was revealed? What are the chhandas? Why chhandas? Why do you know this is Anushtup chandas, this is Drishtup chandas? Chando Devi. The blessings of the Devi should be there. Every knowledge without the blessings, the meaning will not, bhati, right? It doesn't come to us. You can read it 100 times. Nothing comes to it unless there is a blessing of the Rishi. Why Rishi? Nyasa is done because the Rishis, when you say Vishwamitra Rishi, in Gayatri Mantra, why? Vishwamitra's blessings are needed for us to know the meaning of Gayatri Mantra. Otherwise, nothing will happen. You'll be chanting. That's it. Nothing will happen. But when Vishwamitra's blessings are there, then suddenly the meaning of that comes to you. Okay? For the meaning to flash, you need the Rishi. For the Shuddhi of your speech and chanting, you need the blessing of the Chando Abhimani Devis, all the Devis. Sharada, Bharati, all of these different Devis. They are Saraswati. So their blessings, if their blessings are there, then our speech will be uncorrupted. They're cursed, therefore corruption has happened. Right? So that part is there. Then Devata. What is this Upanishad's Devata? Who are we going to learn about? These three are all. Any mantra, you always need these three. They warn in tradition. Never learn or chant a mantra without knowing the Rishi, Chandas, the Devata. You should always know. Even there is a lot of confusion. But it is more or less known. So now let's come to Katopanishad. Who is Katopanishad? Rishi. Katha Rishi, right? So Rishi is what? Not one person. Every generation has, see, whoever taught me is my Rishi. Right? Whoever taught me is my Rishi. Wherever they got is their Rishi. So then you take all the line, right? Small lines join and big lines in the small branches, and then finally you go to Katha. Katha goes to Vaishampayana. Vaishampayana goes to Veda Vyasa. So Veda Vyasa is a Rishi. Before that also it existed. Where did it come from? Different Devatas. All Veda mantras have one Rishi. The beginning Rishi. Who is that? Brahmadeva. Brahmadeva was the Rishi for. Like for example, if you don't know the Rishi of a mantra, Brahma Rishi, good, correct, because it's fine. Because everything else is recent. Brahma Rishi means who is the Moola Rishi for all of that? Who taught Brahma all of this? Who gave Brahma? In which form? Who said Hayagriva form? Right? So the Moola Rishi of everything is Hayagriva Rupa. Horse form, right? Hayagriva Rupa is the Moola Rishi. Then Brahma. Then all of these things, and then whoever Rishi was there before Veda Vyasa. For us, Veda Vyasa is Rishi. Vaishampayana is Rishi. Katha is Rishi. Whoever taught us now is Rishi.
Right? Just a quick question. How are the Sapta Rishis connected with this? Like, do they have any importance? Like
there are many Saptarishi. Every age has a Saptarishi. But usually it's always the Maharishi Saptapurve. Like if you go to 10th chapter in the Gita, the first 7 Rishis.
Yeah.
Vasishta, all of those. Yeah, Vasishtas are a big key in Rig Veda. Right? Sunil Vasishta. Yeah, we are Rigveda. So, yeah.
So they do have the.
Yes, they are the originators.
So where do they come? Like
even Veda Vyasa traces to who? Parashara Shakti. Yes, Vasishta.
So each Sapta Rishis have their own Vedas. Like
no, there's no own Vedas. They have own branches.
Branches.
Yeah.
So for example, if
like for example, Bharadvaja, there's a branch. Atri. Atreyasa is a huge branch. Atreyasa Gotra is, a lot of, all of this medicine, it's all Atreyasa. Right? If you go to Charaka Samhita, in Himalayas, all of these rishis were gathered and Atreyasa taught them this. Why Atri? Why Atri is associated with medicine? Who can tell me? Huh? Who is the son of?
Yeah,
Or no, who is he the father of? Not
Atri's father.
whose father is Atri? Chandra. Chandra is medicine. Herbs. All the ruler of herbs is Chandra. So Atri Gotra Samudbhava. So in Chandra mantra, that is Atri Gotra Samudbhava means he came from Atri. Atri. What is the name? Not three. Sattva Rajas Tamo Guna. It's beyond the three. Atri means what? Beyond the three. Three is all this word. Beyond three means Atri. Not three. Right? So all the Sapta Rishis are different branches. Yeah. All of the Rishis, they have Bhrugus, huge. It's a huge Varuna, all come from that whole branch is Bhrugu. The Taittiriya Bhrugur Vaivarunihi Varunam Pitaram Upasasara. That means Bhrugu goes to his father Varuna to get the whole of Taittiriya Upanishad is the Varuna telling Bhrugu Rishi. So then the whole line of that is all the Bhargavas, including Parashurama from Bhargava Gotra. Right? So, Lakshmi, Bhargavi. Lakshmi is what? She is the daughter of Bhrugu. Right? She is a Bhargavi. Shukracharya is also Bhargava. Right? So what does it say? The Bhrugus are the Asura line is influenced by the Bhrugus. Right? Lakshmi, wealth, Shukra, comfort, wealth, comfort, everything is coming from the Bhrugu line. Varuna is water, water is pleasure, comfort, everything is water. The element of water is there, without water there is no comfort. So all of that, like if you look at the Bhrugu line, it's all about all the people that come under there, they are usually prosperity, money, and all of those things are Bhargava Gotra. So if you have somebody with the last name Bhargav, probably they are that line in Bhargava Gotra, Bharadvaja Gotra, Atreyasa Gotra, Atri Gotra. So all of these, they have different shakas. What's the time?
Before you wanted for the Katopanishad, Rishi's Kata Chandras.
So we said Rishi is Kata, right? And you know the lineage, right? Jaimini is the Rishi, Kata, Upashaka. So Kata got that. The portion that we are reading now is going to be from the Kata portion of what Vaishnampayana taught. And then Chandas is basically starting with prose, and then mostly Trishtup, which means 11 times 4. It's 4 padas, 4 steps of 11 aksharas each. But the mantra that we chanted first is what? Anushtup Chandas. So there's Anushtup, right?
So when we are doing the Dhyanam, so when you said Rishi, Chandas and Devata, so which Chandas now I should take? Trishtup or
No, when you're reading that Chandas, you worship that Chandas.
So every mantra I have to go back and do the Dhyanam and then start.
It's not like Bhagavad Gita. It's only Anushtup Chandas and only some part is Trishtup Chandas. No, then it's very easy, right? But here there's Trishtup, mostly Trishtup, but there's Anushtup. Like for example, Urdhvam Pranam Unnayati is what? 8. Apanam Pratyagasyati. Madhye Vamanam Asinam 8. Vishve Deva Upasate 8. Anushtup Chandas. Like that. 11, Trishtup Chandas. So it's mostly Trishtup. Some are Anushtup.
So each time I recite the mantra, I have to go back, do the Dhyanam and then.
Are you planning to do it? Then not just asking him. Are you serious? Then there's different Vedas and different mantras, Devatas for different chandas. So you have to do the worship of them. But then Yathasthanam is usually what they say. If there's a mixture, is Yathasthanam. Wherever that mantra occurs, that Trishtup Chandas, Anushtup Chandas. Some of them, the initial part is prose. So because Ajurveda is mostly prose. So all of those things, right? So chhandas is trishtup and anushtup and prose. Then what? Devata. What is the Devata? I said. Yama is the Rishi.
You said Katra is the Rishi.
See, that is what you have to take. Katha is the Rishi who gave us. Who gave the mantra to who? In that one, in the story. Yama gave it to Nachiketas. So Yama is the Rishi. Nachiketas is also the Rishi.
But because he gives it to me.
Like I said, it's not one Rishi. Whoever is the giver of knowledge, they become the Rishi. Right? So Katha Rishi, from where we got it in our Kali Yuga. But then who is the original Rishi in the Katopanishad itself? Yama is the Rishi. Yama is giving to Nachiketa. So Yama is the Rishi. Right? Nachiketa is also a Rishi. So you have to think in those terms. Right? So now, who is the Devata of this? What did we say? The mantra, first. I said mantra for the next 3 years. Urdhvam pranamunnayatyapanam prattigasyati madhye vamanamasinam. Vamana is the Vamana Murti of Vishnu is the Surya Deva. Who is Vamana? Surya Deva, right? Aditi's last son, youngest son is Vamana. So basically his son. Right? So Vamana is the. So this is the Rishi, Chandas, Devata, worship and Smarana before we start the Upanishad. What is the time?
12:30.
12:30. Oh, God.
1:30.
Oh, 12:30. So this is the foundation for what is Vedas, where does it stand in our traditions, and how many types of Vedas are there, and then where does this Katashaka come from, why it became to Shukla and Krishna Yajurveda, and within that the Katashaka, and then the Chintana of the Devata, Rishi, and Chandas, the various Chandas in this Upanishad. So this is where we are. We'll come to the, okay, a little bit before we go. Every Upanishad is part of a Vedic literature. So the tradition is to always chant the Shanti mantra always before the, so every time, whenever we start, we always chant the Shanti mantra. So every Rik has a different Shanti mantra. Yaju, as in Krishna Yajurveda is the Sahana Vavatu is the Shanti mantra. And then Shukla Yajurveda is Purna Vedam, like the Samaveda, Yajurveda. So, I mean, Atharva, all of these have different Shanti mantras. So Shanti mantra for Krishna Yajurveda is Sahana Vavatu. So let's chant that before we start. Okay. So I'll just explain to you what it means.
You gave us a script.
The script is there, but I don't think Swara is probably not. I don't remember the Swara is there. There are no markings, right? So yeah, mantras, it's always more effective when it is told in Swara, right? But first, yeah, it's Sahana Vavatu, like that, right? There's a Anudatta and all of that, Swarita. Huh? So Udatta is normal, right? See, Veda, I said Samaveda is music. Music is how many notes? 7 notes. Rigveda is not music, poetry. How many notes are there in Rigveda? 3 notes. Udatta. So it's like, go to your piano, 3 keys. So every Veda Swara, you can do it with 3 keys. It's all within 3 keys. Basically, Udatta is the normal. And again, it's a normal, which where is Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma is a normal, Madhyama is a normal. Niga, all of it, right? No, it's not Sa. That is true. It's actually 3. It's if it's like Sari, Ni, right? Like that, like Shadja. If you go to Shadja, then like that. So it is 3. It's only 3. Only 3 keys. All of the Vedas, all of the Rig Veda, 3 keys. Yeah.
Some parts of have, I think, more than
Dirgha Swara. Yeah, that is just time. It is like pressing the key, what do you call it? Press the pedal, right? Like that. It's like, yeah, it's like the, holding it for 2 seconds instead of 1 second. Right? But it's Swarita. Just variation is Dirgha Swarita. So instead of 1 second for Swarita, you hold it for 2 seconds for Dirgha Swarita. That's basically okay. But it's basically 3 keys. You are not going more than 3 keys in all of the Rigveda. Right? But when you go to Samaveda, then Sa to Ni, you are going all the 7 everywhere. Right? All of that stops. So, what is this Sahana Vavatu? It is relevant. Who is Sahana? Are we talking about Sahana? It is Saha now Avatu. Now means in Sanskrita, Naha means us or me. Now, see, English is what? Singular, plural. 1 is singular, 2 is plural. Even if it's 2, it's many. 1 and many, right? English language and many other European languages, there's 1 and many. Indian languages is 1, 2, and many. So in Sanskrita, it is, it's 1, 2, because nature, there's a lot of pairs. So there's a specific pair, 2, and then many. It's 1, 2, and many. In Indian languages, it's very, and I think even in some of the other languages in Europe, there is a 1, 2, many structure. So now is both of us, us both, right? Who is this us both? The teacher and the students, right? Or whenever there is a knowledge exchange going on, Saha, Paramatma, he, now the gurus and the shishyas and the people who are in the exchange of knowledge, Avatu, protect us. Ava, Rakshane Dhatu. Let him protect us. Then Ava is also Pravesha. Like, let him sit in me so that I can tell the right things. Let him sit in them so that they can understand it the right way. So that's also Ava, Pravesha. Is another dhatu that we can. So that means what? Going to fundamental. When can a truly genuine knowledge exchange happens? When can it happen? No, that's fine. But
There's fine tuning between the receiver and the giver.
it's fine. But then the environment should be what? You should feel safe. I should feel safe. That means free speech. Who is guaranteeing the free speech? The government. If there is no government, there is no free speech. I say it's my right for speech. Nothing is there. No right. The right has to be guaranteed by the government. So government is Avatu. Saha government Avatu, Naha exchange. Right? So that is what. So Avatu is what? Everything, every knowledge exchange can only happen in a secure environment, in a protected environment. So that is very important. Ava, Rakshane. So Krishna is there, what are the protection? Right? So that knowledge exchange, that's why it's very important to create that environment first, right? It's very important to create the exchange where the exchange can happen fearlessly. That is Avatu. So Saha, Paramatma, now both students or both people who are in the knowledge exchange, Avatu, Rakshatu, let him protect us. Then Bhuja Palane is one dhatu is there. Bhuja, Bhunaktu means what? Palana Posha. Bhuj, Bhoga, right? Bhoga is also. So let him. So if you are hungry, I am hungry, what happens? So let him keep us nourished, well, right? Healthy, nourished, and all of those things. Because without you are sick, I am sick, no exchange is going to happen. So there's protection, there is health, prosperity, and all of those things. Then Saha Viryam Karavavakai. What is it? Viryam. Let him make me virya. That means what? You have to be fearless. You know the truth, but you're scared. Or let God grant me fearlessness, so I can speak the truth fearlessly. Right? Both the guru and the shishya. Guru makes a mistake. The people, the teacher makes a mistake. The student should be fearless to tell me, Sunil, you are wrong. When the student makes a mistake, I shouldn't say, it's okay. You feel bad and depressed. Let him not correct him. No. I will correct. Right? So both of us should be correcting of each other. We should not be fearful. We should not be scared to speak the truth. So Saha Viryam Tejasvi now Adhitamastu. That means what? Whatever we have studied, Adhitam, whatever we have studied, Adhyayana that we have done, Tejasvi, let it make us Tejasvi. Energized, prosperous. All of that comes Tejasvi. Tejasvi. Then Ma Vitvishava. Let there be no dvesha, hatred of any kind anywhere, because in the environment of hate, no knowledge can be exchanged. If you don't like me, are you going to listen to me? You're not going to listen. If I don't like you, will I teach you? No. So that means I should like you, you should like me, then a knowledge exchange. So if you go back to scientifically, when does a genuine knowledge exchange happens? In a protected, safe environment where both of them are prosperous, in the sense, not prosperous as in both are millionaires. That means both are well nourished, and then both, and there is no hate. It's only love. There's only love. That is how a true knowledge exchange can happen. Right? There's Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Beautiful book. Beautiful book. So now you know. So next time you hear that, you should think of this meaning, because the Veda says, Yadeva Vidyaya Karoti, Shraddhaya, Upanishada, Tadeva Viryavattaram. Again, Viryam comes. Right? So whatever you do, Vidyaya, if you know what you are doing, it is powerful. Shraddhaya, if you have the faith and do it, even, and then if it is in line with the Upanishads and you are focused, then it is Viryavattaram. And that means rote doing is the lowest. Doing with knowledge, doing with faith and knowledge, and doing with deep focus. And that one is Viryavattaram. That's the way. So chanting mantra is fine, rote, but then you should seek to understand what it is saying, right? And then have faith in what it is doing. Okay, now we'll stop. So let's chant the Shanti mantra. So this will be at the beginning of every class. We are going to, and do you know Sanavato? Arjun? Okay, come here. Come here so that people know. He's the upcoming star. He's very, very interesting. Say.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvahare Tejasvinavaditamastu Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So there are two schools of thought. Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai, without a pause, is one school of thought. A pause, I think he gave a pause. That's another school. Usually I also just join, but there are two schools of thought where there's a pause before ma, or there is no.
I was looking at the pause because the mantra is there, but there is no two mantras. There's one pause.
No, pause is no mantra. Pause is
No
no
mantra. The mind is there. That shows there should be a pause. But duration of the pause is at the end, there are two lines.
Yeah.
At the end. Okay, 2 lines is an opposite pause.
Yeah.
1 line is short.
Yeah.
I missed it.
So it's